When my husband is at work, he thinks he's royalty. You get suspicious because you do whatever you want, he accuses. I was trembling with anger at my husband's selfish words. I swore in my heart that I would never forgive him, and that I would get my revenge. My name is Luna. I'm 26 years old. My husband Jackson is 35, and we've been married for 3 years. But I have a problem. It's about Jackson's mother, my mother-in-law, Grace. Grace is oddly suspicious of me having an affair. I know why. Jackson's brother Matthew recently got divorced because of his ex-wife's affair. I've met her a few times, but she never seemed like that kind of person. However, she fell for her affair partner and left Matthew, abandoning their home. Matthew was so shocked by his ex-wife's infidelity that he changed drastically after the divorce. Once cheerful and always smiling, he became withdrawn, not leaving his room for days. He couldn't go to work and was diagnosed with depression at the hospital. Because of that, he had to quit his job, which had been going well. Seeing Matthew's life thrown into chaos because of the affair, Grace became overly worried that Jackson might suffer the same fate. Grace, always a worrier, even had me investigated before we got married. She hired a detective agency to look into my background. I found out when friends and colleagues at work told me strangers were asking about me. I was perplexed to learn I was being investigated behind my back, but my desire to marry Jackson was so strong that I didn't pay much attention to it. But with the recent divorce drama of my brother-in-law, Grace started openly suspecting me. Luna, you got home after 10 p.m. yesterday. What were you doing out so late? She would ask such things abruptly when I visited my husband's family without even a greeting. I wondered how she knew, but I was working late. I'm handling a big project right now, so I often get home late, I answered. Can anyone at your company confirm that? Is it okay if I check with them? Grace asked something so absurd. Please don't ask my colleagues. It would be a hassle for them. Well, if that's the case, it can't be helped. Nowadays, you can track someone's location with their cell phone. Set up your phone so I can see your location on my mobile. She kept making unreasonable demands. Normally, I would refuse outright, but I was worried she might really contact my workplace. I had nothing to hide, and if it would keep her quiet, I reluctantly shared my location with Grace, without giving it much thought. However, this turned into a huge hassle. Grace began calling me frequently, even during work hours, whenever I stepped away from the office. Luna, you're not at your company. What are you doing? What do you mean, Grace? I'm working. I'm heading to an important meeting with a client right now. Really? Isn't that the area known for its busy streets? Are you sure you're not meeting an affair partner under the guise of work? The client's office is nearby. I have to go. I'm almost there. This kind of exchange happened over and over. Unable to bear it any longer, I spoke to my husband Jackson about it. Jackson, you need to do something about Grace. She calls and sends WhatsApp messages nonstop, even when I'm working. Grace is distressed about Matthew. You know what he went through. Cut her some slack, will you? He replied dismissively. Meanwhile, Grace's behavior escalated further. One day, I had some free time during a business meeting, so I was discussing the deal with my boss at a cafe in a nearby business hotel. My boss, while looking at the documents, suddenly reeled back in surprise. I turned around to see an enraged Grace standing there. Luna, are you on a date here under the pretext of work? She glanced at my boss's ring. Well, well, the other person is married too. What are two married people doing together? She said loudly. What are you talking about, Grace? This person is my boss. We're having a meeting before meeting with our client. I hastily replied and managed to send Grace away. After apologizing profusely to my boss, I somehow managed to defuse the situation but I was at my limit. When I got home, Jackson was already there, watching TV. I told him about what happened. Jackson said, "Grace jumped to conclusions, huh? That's unfortunate. But don't get upset over every little thing like this." He responded nonchalantly, "It's not just me. She's causing trouble for my boss, too. It's really a problem. Please talk to Grace about it, Jackson." But he was unhelpful. "You just need to be careful not to arouse suspicion. Then Grace will eventually calm down." He refused to take it seriously. After that incident, Grace became even harsher towards me, constantly suspecting something between my boss and me. No matter how many times I appealed to Jackson, he showed no signs of taking action. Due to Grace's behavior, arguments with my husband increased, and our marriage started to deteriorate. Jackson, perhaps to avoid my frustration, started working late and often didn't come home until midnight. He would have dinner outside, and began saying he had business trips on weekends, making it difficult for us to spend time together. Despite all this, the baseless suspicions from Grace didn't stop, and the relentless questioning continued. One day, seeing how tired I looked from Grace's baseless accusations, my best friend since college and colleague at work, Aria, invited me out for lunch. "Luna, are you okay? You seem really exhausted lately," she asked with concern as soon as we sat down. "It's really become a problem." I started and told Aria about what was happening. "Wow, that's tough. I remember Grace investigated you before your marriage too. These continuous days would wear anyone down. Hey, since your husband's away on a business trip, why don't we go on a trip for a change of scenery?" "A trip? Huh. Actually, there's a famous love shrine I've always wanted to visit. Let's spend a night and enjoy some good food," Aria suggested. Indeed, staying at home only meant getting drained by Grace's constant calls, even for a short outing. So I decided to take up Aria's offer for an overnight trip over the weekend. I informed Grace in advance that I'd be traveling with a female friend. First, we headed to the Love Shrine, famous for matchmaking, Aria's main destination. It was a popular spot, bustling with couples. While looking at the wishes written on paper, "Luna, look at this." Aria called me over. Next to her, she pointed at a piece of paper. It read, "I hope my beloved leaves his wife soon so we can be together." Typical of a spot known for fulfilling romantic wishes, it seemed to attract various kinds of couples. "So many people like this in the world. No wonder Luna's mother-in-law is so paranoid," Aria murmured. "Ah, the person who wrote this over there?" She pointed, and I couldn't believe what I saw and instinctively hid. "What's wrong?" Aria was surprised by my sudden move. "Jackson." "What?" "The person with the one who wrote that paper? It's Jackson." "What?" There was no mistaking my husband. That was definitely Jackson. Arm in arm with another woman, completely oblivious to our presence. "Wait, Jackson's supposed to be on a business trip, right? I'll go check." Aria, clearly confused, was about to confront Jackson. I grabbed her arm, stopping her. "Well, if he's lying about a business trip, and he is here with another woman, it's clear, even if I don't want to admit it. But if we confront him now, he'll just make excuses. Whether we're getting back together or separating, we need to hold him accountable. We need evidence." Though I was shocked, I calmed down Aria, who was even more affected. "Evidence." Muttering this, Aria began to take pictures of the two with her smartphone. "Let's follow them. If we can get a picture of them entering a hotel, it'll be even stronger evidence." Aria then looked at me worriedly. "Sorry, I got a bit carried away. I just can't stand to see you look like this, Luna. You can go back to the inn first if you don't want to see this." I felt a warm surge of gratitude and reassurance for Aria's kindness. "Thanks, Aria, but I'm okay. I want to see it with my own eyes." Resolved, Arya and I followed Jackson and the woman, capturing the moment they cozily entered a hotel arm in arm on our mobile phones. This was indisputably an affair. The next night, when Jackson returned from his trip, I casually probed him. "Welcome back. How was your business trip? Where did you go?"
"To the neighboring state. Why ask? Doesn't matter where I went. I'm exhausted from working for 2 straight days. What did you do over the weekend?"
"I went on an overnight trip with Arya."
"A trip? Huh, must be nice to do that while your husband's working. No wonder Grace suspects you. I'm tired. I'm going to take a shower."
With those unbelievable words, Jackson headed to the bathroom. Unbelievable. He doesn't mention his own affair, but blames me instead. My anger reached its peak. Ah, I see. So he hadn't stopped Grace's attacks on me to keep the focus off himself. Seeing Jackson's attitude, any thought of reconciling with him disappeared. But I couldn't let my anger out now. Before thinking about divorce, I needed more evidence to turn things in my favor. I decided to start my revenge against Jackson. First, I told Arya about it. "So you decided to leave him. I support your decision, Luna. I'll send you the photos we took at the shrine." Having Arya's support felt incredibly empowering. "Thank you." I expressed my heartfelt gratitude. Then I began to gather solid evidence of Jackson's affair. Unaware that I was onto him, Jackson was quite careless. His phone wasn't locked, and their WhatsApp exchanges were full of incriminating evidence. They had also exchanged numerous photos, and I was able to figure out the woman's identity and address. With solid evidence in hand, I pondered my next move. Meanwhile, Jackson, oblivious to my actions, approached me.
"We're gathering at my parents' house for Christmas this year. Get ready for that."
"Understood."
"Oh, and I have work on Christmas, so I'll probably stay at the office. I'll head directly to my parents' house the next day around noon."
How effortlessly he lied. So he was planning to spend Christmas with her. As I thought about this, with a detached feeling.
"Hey, are you listening? Don't laze around just because I'm not there on Christmas. As usual, send out Christmas cards with both our names."
Jackson ordered arrogantly. That's it, I realized. The perfect revenge. "Of course, I'll write and send out the Christmas cards with our names on them," I replied. I put extra effort into the Christmas cards and mailed them. Having done what needed to be done, I felt relieved as Christmas approached. The next day, I visited Jackson's parents' house around noon, expecting him to have arrived. When I got there, the house was in an uproar. Seeing me, Jackson confronted me loudly.
"What the hell is this Christmas card about?"
He had seen the card I made. "What do you mean? I just properly informed Grace and the others about your activities." I answered calmly. I had included a photo of Jackson cozying up with his mistress and a screenshot of their WhatsApp conversation, expressing love and future plans.
"You betrayed Luna and had an affair. It was you all along."
Grace exploded in anger. Matthew, too, was furious with Jackson.
"Knowing how much I suffered from my ex-wife's affair, you did the same thing to Luna. You're the lowest."
He looked ready to hit Jackson.
"No, that's not true. It's a misunderstanding. The woman is a junior colleague, nothing more."
Jackson desperately tried to calm Grace and Matthew.
"Luna, doing this kind of payback just because you're suspected is in poor taste."
He continued. I see. He still won't admit it, but I was prepared. I laid out all the evidence I'd collected on the table. Then maybe you'd like to explain all this evidence. The family looked shocked at the evidence displayed. So the affair is true. What have you done? Grace said coldly. I thought you knew how much I detest infidelity. You've betrayed not just Luna, but our entire family. You're no son of mine. Don't ever step foot in this house again. She continued. Grace then apologized to me. Luna, I'm so sorry. I've been terribly suspicious of you since Matthew's incident. I should have doubted my own son. I'm ashamed as a parent. Sorry. It's okay. I'm glad the misunderstanding is cleared up in the end, I replied. In the end, Jackson muttered, looking at me. I then presented him with the divorce papers. We're separating right now. I'll be claiming a fair compensation in the divorce court. There's plenty of evidence, and you have no right to refuse. To my surprise, Jackson was defiant. Grace, Luna, do whatever you want. I was planning to divorce Luna and be with her anyway. She's way richer than our family, so being disowned doesn't bother me at all. While Jackson was saying this, he began calling his mistress Harper. Yeah, it's me. Be happy. I just got divorced. Now we can be together whenever. Harper's loud voice, audible to us all, shouted in response. What are you talking about, Jackson? What have you done? Because of the Christmas card you sent, I'm in big trouble. My parents are furious and say they'll disown me if I don't break up with you. What are you going to do about this? Jackson glared at me as he heard her scream. Indeed, I had sent the same Christmas card to Harper's house too. That's right, as you guessed, I sent Harper's family the same Christmas card. Since it was from both of us, I'm sure her parents got the message, I explained. It seemed Jackson and his mistress planned to rely on her parents' support for their future life. Jackson had apparently told her parents he was already divorced. Learning their relationship was an affair, her parents were understandably enraged. My life's in jeopardy, not to mention the marriage. I'm not going to break ties with my parents just to be with you. Don't contact me ever again. With that, Harper hung up. Jackson, dumped by the mistress he thought he would be with, suddenly changed his tune. Young women are no good. Looks like Luna's the only one for me, he muttered conveniently. You seem to be misunderstanding something. Even if you're okay with it, I'm not. I have no intention of getting back with a cheater like you. Just sign the divorce papers quickly. I rejected him. Jackson, urged by his family, signed the divorce papers and handed them to me, downcast. Then I told him, You're not the only one who received this Christmas card. It'll be interesting to see you go back to work after the holidays. When I said that, What do you mean? I heard my husband's voice behind me as I left his parents' house. Jackson later discovered the full extent of my revenge. I had sent the same Christmas cards to all the company contacts Jackson had exchanged with, just like the ones sent to our families. The Christmas card became the talk of the company. Due to this, Jackson, recently promoted to director, was demoted, derailing his career. Losing credibility in his job, he now faced uncertain days, possibly being on the list for layoffs. On top of that, with the compensation for the divorce leaving him financially strained, the demotion and reduced salary would only make his life harder. But as a divorced woman, that was no longer my concern. To avoid the hassle of dealing with everything myself, I left all the proceedings to a lawyer and refused any contact with Jackson. Thanks to fairly dividing our savings, I was able to move out immediately after the divorce. This freed me from any ties with Jackson, leaving me feeling incredibly relieved and clear-headed. Having completed all the procedures, I took Arya out for a meal to express my gratitude. Everything's finally over. Thanks so much for your help, Arya. Luna, you did great. I never thought you'd go this far for revenge, but they say even the nicest people can be scary when they're angry. Arya said, and we both laughed. Hi, Luna. As a reward for all this, let's go on a revenge trip. A revenge trip? Yes, back to that matchmaking shrine. Last time we couldn't really make our wishes because of everything going on. Thanks to that, I'm still single. Arya joked, puffing her cheeks. Indeed, the paper written by Jackson's mistress wished for Jackson and me to split so she could be with him, a wish that, in a way, was half fulfilled. In that sense, the shrine might actually have some power. I laughed at the thought. Luna, what are you laughing about? Arya asked. Nothing, I replied, and we began planning